The story begins with people sharing liquor among themselves. One of the two seemed like he was a martial artist. Just one cup when reunited after a long time, the old man replied to the martial artist. His name was Guy Ryongja. The martial artist remembered their first meeting about 40 years ago. He had asked the old man to use the Great Regression technique to send him back into the past. The Great Regression technique was a significant feat of the Guy family. It had been researched for centuries and passed down through generations. He had to stop researching this technique because it required obtaining 5 materials: the sacred artifact of the heavenly wind cult, the thunder bell, the sacred artifact of the divine dragon family, the divine incense brazier, the core essence of the 1,000-year carp, and the secret demonic soul of the demonic cult. The old man was able to obtain the secret demonic soul for 5 million niang, but he could not get the other materials. He was surprised when he found that the person in front of him had obtained everything else required for the regression technique. The old man asked how on earth he had managed to obtain all these items. The martial artist said it was very difficult to acquire the last material, the secret demonic soul of the demonic cult. He even considered killing the old man. The old man asked why he wanted to go to the past. With a furious voice, the martial artist replied it was for revenge. The old man inquired if his skill was lacking and whether he needed to go to the past because he could not achieve revenge in the present. The man replied yes. The old man asked whom he resented. The martial artist replied Wamugi. He was the man who had killed all 3 leaders of the strongest groups: the Muram Alliance leader, the unorthodox sect leader, and the heavenly demon. Wamugi was the strongest person in all of history. The old man was shocked and told the martial artist that even if he went to the past, he could not defeat him. The martial artist was adamant about his revenge because he was the son of the heavenly demon who was killed by Wamugi. He was not seeking revenge for his father's death alone, but for all the innocent people, children, and animals who had nothing to do with martial arts and were also killed. The old man could not believe such a thing was possible. The martial artist said he could not defeat Wamugi in his current age, so he needed to go to the past. He wanted to ask Wamugi why he had killed the strongest and even children. The old man said that if the regression technique worked properly, he would do him a favor. He asked that after going to the past, the martial artist should meet him and tell him not to get married, to stay alone for the rest of his life. The martial artist promised to do so. The old man then began performing the regression technique. The technique, which he had researched for a long time, was a success. He was successfully able to create the technique to go to the past. But when he was about to tell the martial artist that the technique worked properly, the martial artist was lying on the pillar. The old man then said sorry and tried to enter the portal of technique by himself. But when he was about to enter the portal, he found he could not move. His entire body was petrified. The martial artist, furious, demanded to know how the old man could betray him. He could not believe he was the one who could betray him. The old man said he lost his rationality for a short instant and was truly sorry. The martial artist forgave him, acknowledging that he too was somewhat selfish and it did not matter to him. However, if there had been someone else in his place, he would have killed them immediately. He forgave the old man and thanked him for waiting him throughout his life. After that, everything went black and white. The martial artist could not explain anything clearly. A certain man appeared from portal and told the martial artist that he is the one who could send him into the past. The man said that he had passed all the tests. He explained that the true material of the technique was not just the physical materials, but the effort someone put into gathering them. The martial artist had passed the last test, which was to forgive Guy Ryongja, and it was the toughest of them all. The old man asked why he wanted to go to the past and what he regretted in his life. The martial artist replied that he wanted to get revenge on those who deserved to die and save those who were not supposed to die, to live his life meaningfully and not be so desperate. He regretted all of it. The man was looking forward how he is going to spend his life. Then the man disappeared. After that, the martial artist bid farewell to the old man and promised to fulfill his promise. In the next scene, we see that the martial artist has traveled to his past. He saw his father and other family members of his Persian lineage. He was happy and joyful. A person yelled at the martial artist, protagonist who was also the second young master. How long is he going to make him wait? The protagonist then remembered that this day was for the new demon. There was uproar in the demonic cult because the heavenly demon declared that the selection of the cult leader was no longer restricted to his bloodline. Anyone could participate to become the next heavenly demon. The current heavenly demon launched a fighting competition among the next generation leaders, with the victor earning the chance to challenge one of the heavenly demon's two sons. The winner of this fight would be granted one wish. Our protagonist remembered feeling deeply offended when he was chosen by the victor because he was seen as an easier target compared to his older brother. The victor even poisoned the young master's food to render him unable to use internal energy, bribing the cook for this treachery. This underhanded tactic led to our protagonist's defeat in the past. When he told his father about the trickery, his father dismissed his concerns and blamed him for falling victim to such petty schemes. This incident cost him his position in the succession war. The protagonist knew that his past failures began with this fight against Gu Pyungo, one of the 7 disciples of the 8 demon supremes, known as the Blood Heaven Sword Demon. Though initially underestimating Gu Pyungo, the protagonist decided to fight without revealing his true skills, declaring loudly that he would not use any internal energy. This bold declaration shocked the audience and infuriated Gu Pyungo, who then announced he would also fight without using internal energy. Despite the disappointment of the spectators expecting a lackluster fight, Gu Pyungo threatened to cut down everything in his path. The protagonist, still unfamiliar with his younger body, adeptly dodged each attack, causing Gu Pyungo to grow increasingly furious. When the challenger lunged again, the protagonist countered with precise blows, striking Gu Pyungo in the chest and face repeatedly. Finally, he broke the hand that administered the poison, demonstrating his dominance. The match ended with the young master proclaimed the winner. When asked about his wish, the protagonist surprised everyone by requesting to go hunting with the heavenly demon, his father. His father, astonished, agreed to the wish and promised to take him hunting the next morning. In the next scene, our protagonist was looking at the mirror and thinking that it looked really young, unlike the old days he used to look. He was thinking about how Mungi could be doing right now. If he could find him before he got strong, then he could resolve this matter easily. But the problem was finding him because he appeared in the Murim as if he had fallen from the sky, and after that, he destroyed the Murim alliance, the Orthodox sect, the unorthodox sect, and the demonic cult. He hid himself from the world, so there was not much information about him. Finding him would be like a provocation. So our protagonist prioritized becoming stronger than him. A lady called Young Master, surprising him. "You fought very excellently today," said.
Liu Li.
"Ah yes," Master said. She was his bodyguard in the past. The protagonist didn't know that his bodyguard, a lady who was very beautiful in her youth and had the potential to be the most beautiful in the world, had become fat because she learned the martial art called the body petrification technique to protect her master. Even in the past life, she threw herself in front of him to block the sword aura that Mungi sent. He looked into her eyes, and she asked why he was staring. He thought she had become prettier, and in his past life, he only saw her as his bodyguard. But now, he was looking into her eyes with a gaze, admiration, respect, and love. He didn't know back then that she was very insecure, and he never noticed her swollen eyes. Leon noticed how her master had changed. This was much expected to protagonist as she was his bodyguard. He then told her to follow him. They went to the cooks of the heavenly demon sect, where the protagonist asked about the reason for poisoning the food with energy-dispelling poison. The cooks were shocked to hear this and replied that one cook had not done it. The protagonist then asked the cook if he had gambled away the 3,000 niang he received. The boy had incurred a great debt because he got addicted to gambling. He had even spent all his parents' money and borrowed a lot. This was why he had poisoned the protagonist's meal. The cook sincerely apologized for his grave mistake, admitting that he was blinded by money and committed a serious crime. The protagonist asked if Gu Pyungo had personally given the money to the cook, to which the cook replied yes. The protagonist then decapitated the cook in a single blow. As the cook's head fell, head cook sincerely apologized to the young master, taking responsibility for the mistake. The young master replied that it wasn't his fault, but the head cook blamed himself. The protagonist stated that if anyone causes a mistake in the group, it is not the leader of the group's fault, so the cook should not take the responsibility. He then told them to cook shredded chicken for him because it had been decades since he had been served in his cult. The next day at dawn, in the Heavenly Demon Pavilion, the Heavenly Demon was waiting for the protagonist, who had brought a lot of things with him, thinking they would be needed for the next few days. However, the Heavenly Demon planned to hunt for only a single day. The protagonist replied that if the Heavenly Demon enjoyed the hunt, he might decide to stay a few days longer. The Heavenly Demon replied that in only your ambitious dreamed. Later they entered the forest for hunting, and the Heavenly Demon praised his son, saying he was better than he thought. The protagonist thought to himself that if he had noticed his hidden skills, it would be better not to hide anything from his father. He replied yes, that he hid his true power. He was not a cat that hides, but a beast that hides its claws. The Heavenly Demon asked why a beast would hide its claws, suggesting that's why he was a cat. He then inquired how much of the soaring sword art he had mastered, a technique passed only through the Heavenly Demon's bloodline and considered extremely advanced. The protagonist replied that he had completely mastered it. The Heavenly Demon launched a surprise attack, which the protagonist dodged. He thought to himself what would have happened if he had not dodged. The Heavenly Demon confirmed that the protagonist had truly mastered the art. The protagonist replied that if he hadn't mastered it, that would have been a fatal blow. You would have paid a simple price for lying in front of the Heavenly Demon. Heavenly Demon replied. The Heavenly Demon praised his son for mastering it at such a young age. The protagonist was pleased with his father's praise. The protagonist asked his father how he had learned to hunt. His father replied that he had learned it from his older brother. The protagonist then asked if he had an uncle. His father replied that he had killed him when he was around the protagonist's age. The protagonist responded that his father had done well. Otherwise, he would have had to fight with his own family. The Heavenly Demon thought he could not find another solution. The protagonist told him not to think he could do the same thing. He mentioned there was no need to consider that because his brother was very cruel and wicked. The Heavenly Demon replied not to speak ill of his brother when he was not around. The protagonist wonders what it feels like to be a father and how his father feels about him because he had never experienced fatherhood in his past life. The protagonist and the Heavenly Demon stop. The Heavenly Demon notices something and says it's their dinner. The protagonist suggests they should kill it, but the Heavenly Demon asks how they can kill something they can't even see. The Heavenly Demon instructs the protagonist to close his eyes and feel his surroundings. The protagonist can only feel energy flowing around him, which he identifies as his father's. The Heavenly Demon tells the protagonist to send out some energy in a single line, making it thinner, and think of his body as a yarn ball, slowly discharging the energy as if pulling a thread. The protagonist follows these instructions exactly as the Heavenly Demon described. The Heavenly Demon asks if he can feel it, and the protagonist replies that he can sense a tree. The Heavenly Demon then asks the protagonist to search the vicinity slowly. Eventually, the protagonist is able to sense a wild boar inside the bushes. The Heavenly Demon is impressed by his son, who modestly responds that he is gifted with a body that learns martial arts quickly, so it's not a big deal for him. Later, while cooking the hunted boar, the Heavenly Demon asks the protagonist where he learned to prepare animals for cooking. The protagonist replies that he learned it from a book. The Heavenly Demon is impressed because the protagonist can do such things without prior experience, but the protagonist knows in his mind that it's because he hunted countless wild boars for food before regressing. The Heavenly Demon asks if the protagonist wants to hunt with him to win his favor, flatter him, and become the new successor. The protagonist simply replies that he knows it wouldn't work on him and that he can become the successor on his own. The Heavenly Demon loves his confidence and asks why he wants to hunt with him. The protagonist has two reasons. The first reason is to learn something directly from the Heavenly Demon that can help him become stronger. He explains that he is not trying to become stronger to take the position of the next Heavenly Demon because his father is already strong, and he doesn't want to waste his youth trying to become it. He is satisfied if he can just learn the Heavenly Demon's martial arts by becoming the successor. He thinks to himself that he needs to learn the 9 Calamities demonic art quickly and go beyond it to defeat Wamugi, who killed his father, the Heavenly Demon, in the past. When asked for the second reason for the hunt, the protagonist simply replies that he wanted to spend some time alone with the Heavenly Demon. The Heavenly Demon responds that such emotions are useless and can be fatal. The protagonist counters that it's not useless if he gets to spend time with the strongest person in the world. He adds that if the heavenly demon drinks liquor, then that will become the world's greatest liquor. The heavenly demon is speechless. The protagonist has no memories of his father from his past life, except for the memory of being scared, and he doesn't want to repeat the same mistakes to not have any memories in this life. On the next day at the dawn, as they are about to head back, the heavenly demon tells the protagonist that they are not going anywhere and instead will hunt a tiger before they leave. The heavenly demon leads the protagonist into the forest and instructs him to close his eyes. The target is 100 yards to the right, further than the last prey. He wants the protagonist to feel the wind this time and infuse his energy into it. The protagonist has never experienced such a thing before because there was no one to teach him. The heavenly demon tells the protagonist not to be slow and careful if he wants to use this in a real-life situation. He needs to send it quickly. After a short time, the protagonist masters it and is able to entangle his energy with the wind. He searches the area 100 yards away and finds a tiger in the bushes. The heavenly demon already acknowledges the tiger's presence and remarks that it's not a big deal. Heavenly demon adds if the protagonist wants a higher chance of survival, he better master this skill properly. The next scene shows them exchanging liquor. The heavenly demon comments on how strong the liquor is, and the protagonist pretends that it is too strong for him. The heavenly demon responds that no demonic human would complain about liquor being too strong. The protagonist retorts that for a demon, having a vicious heart is more important than being able to drink strong liquor. The heavenly demon asks if the protagonist could kill him and live easily with vicious heart. The protagonist replies that he would not be able to do such a thing to his own parents. However, he thinks to himself that if there was a reason to kill him, he would not hesitate, even if he is his father. It is the first time he is having a good conversation with his father. When the protagonist asks how he could kill him, the heavenly demon simply replies that if he is hesitant about it, then he should not even think about it. Heavenly demon and the protagonist return to their cult, where the protagonist continued training to infuse his energy into the wind. After several days of training, he could maintain 3 to 4 lines of energy. It was explained that the more lines he could distribute, the higher his chances of survival. The protagonist was grateful that his father, the heavenly demon, personally taught him this technique, considering it one of the benefits of getting a second chance at life. If the protagonist trained longer, he would be able to release more than 10 lines of energy. However, he remembered that even his father, more skilled than him, was killed by Mugi due to a surprise attack. The Heavenly Demon Pavilion was a place guarded by 3 barriers, 6 trap formations, and groups of selected elites. 8 demon supremes protected it from different directions, along with their subordinates. These included the demonic swordsman of the Northern Heaven's Sword in the north, the demonic bladesmen of the Southern Heaven's Blade in the south, the Iron Fists of the Eastern Fist faction in the east, and the demonic sorcerers of the Western Illusion Formation in the west. In the northeast were the Faceless Swordsmen, in the southeast the Drunken Swordsmen, in the southwest the Poison Fangs along with the Poison King, and in the northwest the Crazy Monks of the Demonic Buddha's Belief. The protagonist initially thought the enemy had broken in from outside but later realized that one or more of the Demon Supremes had betrayed the Heavenly Demon, letting Mugi into the pavilion. In the past, the traitor was never found, and it didn't matter to the protagonist because when his father died, no one sought revenge. Instead, they closed the demonic cult. The protagonist decided to use the Demon Supremes differently this time. While he was deep in thought and decided to go out now, someone was calling him Fatty. The young master was still training, and a bunch of martial artists threatened the protagonist's bodyguard, demanding to see him. The protagonist came outside and asked why Luan was waiting for him for the whole time. One of the 3 martial artists, a disciple of the Blood Heaven's Bladesman named Yongpu, questioned why the protagonist had been training for days out of nowhere. The protagonist knew that Young Po dared to act this way because his father, Heavenly Demon, had announced that anyone in the cult could become the next successor, making the protagonist's position less special. Young Po demanded that the protagonist take responsibility for crippling one of disciple of the Blood Heaven's Bladesman and apologize for this conduct. The protagonist understood that Young Po wanted to create an image and be recognized as the best disciple. The protagonist replied that he could not be the best disciple if he behaved this way, which made Young Po angry. Young-poo then mentioned Pyungo is bedridden due to him, but the protagonist insisted that Young-poo should apologize for speaking rudely towards his subordinate and apologize to her. Young-poo thought this was nonsense, and the protagonist's bodyguard Lee said it was fine for her, but not for the protagonist. Disrespecting the protagonist guard again, Young-poo refused to kneel to his guard and instead again called fatty and said he would rather die. The protagonist unsheathed his sword and demanded Young-poo kneel down, apologize, or fight him. Young-poo insulted the bodyguard again, calling her a fat pig, which enraged the protagonist. Young-poo unsheathed his sword, threatening to take an arm instead of the protagonist's life because he was the son of the heavenly demon. However, before he could attack, the protagonist plunged his sword into Young-poo's face, shocking everyone. The protagonist declared that Young-poo deserved to die for insulting his subordinate and refusing to apologize in the face of young master of cult. Young-poo's subordinates ran towards his dead body and said to the protagonist that if he could handle the consequences of his actions. The protagonist replied that his mouth resembled this consequence. He threatened them to pass the same off to others' mouth. They ran away, taking the body. Leon came towards her master and asked why he had done it for her, yet she was still worried about her master even though she was emotionally hurt. The protagonist simply replied that he killed them because they deserved to die. The person whom the protagonist killed was the disciple of Blood Heaven's Bladesman, so he would not let this slide easily. He was also one of the 8 martial masters of the demonic cult. He possessed superior martial prowess and was one of the 8 demon supremes. The protagonist had crippled and killed 2 of his disciples. Blood Heaven's Bladesman would not do anything reckless and would not gain even if he got involved in this. He would just get criticized for wronging his disciples. So, you don't need to worry, the protagonist replied to Lee. The protagonist thought to himself that now he's going to attract the attention of everyone from the cult. He even gave himself a point for the success in war. Young master, thank you for what you did today. Lee thanked her master for protecting her respect, and she was very happy. The protagonist told her that she should never forget what he did today for the rest of her life. Lee was smiling, and this made the protagonist even happier. He wanted her to always be happy and smiling like today. The protagonist was sitting on a big stone peacefully, thinking about his past life and how desperate he was after the disbandment of the demonic cult. He wondered what would have happened if he had not found out about the great regression technique. Suddenly, a blade was on the side of his face. He was looking into the blade, where he could see his image like in a mirror. There was Blood Heaven's Bladesman, ready to strike with an intimidating aura. The protagonist didn't think that he would get here quickly and was thinking about dodging his sword, but he knew that he could not do it. It was already late. The protagonist was unwavering, even with the sword under his neck. Blood Heaven's Bladesman retreated his sword and simply asked why he had killed and maimed his disciples. The protagonist simply replied that they were both acting like fools, and he taught them a lesson. The protagonist asked if he had come to fight with the youngest son of the heavenly demon. Blood Heaven's Bladesman again put his sword on the neck of the young master and said, "Do you want to see for yourself?" The protagonist said that he would not be able to slice his head if he tried, remembering the terrifying eyes of his father. He simply removed his blade and left a mark on the ground. He told that the small mark on the ground represented his value to the young heavenly demon, and he took the majority. The protagonist told him that he is the son of the heavenly demon and will matter a lot to him even so. Blood Heaven's Bladesman said that they could test it out, whether he would kill him or let him leave freely if he took the head of the young master in his hand. The protagonist replied that he had underestimated the love of a father. Blood Heaven's Bladesman got angry and, in a furious voice, said, "Let's test this out." The protagonist was terrified but replied prudently that there is no need to test it out because he has 2 sons, but there is only one Blood Heaven. Blood Heaven's Bladesman replied that he is not as foolish as his disciples. Blood Heaven's Bladesman left, saying that he hoped they wouldn't meet again, and simply left. The protagonist was a little bit terrified. Blood Heaven's Bladesman was thinking about taking his head to his father. That's why he came here to see him. But he didn't do so. He knew that Blood Heaven's Bladesman realized he was there to test the young master since he had killed his disciple. He was there to see if the protagonist was fit to become successor. Protagonist was baffled and thought, will he become his first opponent of this life?